Hello, and welcome back to Mirror Mind, the space where we see clearly, heal deeply, and live freely. Today, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood and chilling aspects of narcissism, the false self, the mask, the performance, the illusion. If you've ever felt like the narcissist in your life became a completely different person over time, this episode is for you. If you've struggled with confusion, self-doubt, or wondered how someone who once seemed perfect could later become cold, cruel, or controlling, stay with me. This is the heart of narcissistic abuse. And by understanding it, you'll not only gain clarity, you'll begin to reclaim yourself. Let's begin. Chapter 1. What is the false self? To put it simply, the false self is the persona that a narcissist projects to the world. It's not real. It's a carefully constructed image meant to do one thing: get approval, admiration, and control. Imagine a mask so realistic, so detailed, so convincing, that even the person wearing it believes it's real. That's the false self. This mask might look like the perfect partner, the selfless helper, the charming boss, the enlightened spiritual guide, or even the misunderstood victim. The false self is designed to fit whatever role will generate attention, praise, or pity, because all of those feed the narcissist's need for validation, also known as narcissistic supply. But beneath the mask, there's emptiness, shame, fear, a deep, hidden belief that the real self is not enough. And that's why the mask is so important to them, because if it slips, they believe they'll be exposed as unlovable, weak, or worthless. Chapter 2. Why the narcissist needs a false self. Let's go deeper. The narcissist didn't just wake up one day and choose to wear a mask. This behavior usually has roots in early childhood, where love may have been conditional, inconsistent, or absent altogether. Maybe they learned that being vulnerable got them hurt, that achievement earned attention, that pretending to be someone they weren't helped them survive emotionally. So they began to create a version of themselves that would be accepted. This version, the false self, becomes a survival strategy. But as the narcissist grows up, this strategy hardens into their personality. The tragedy? They lose touch with their true self. That inner child, scared, insecure, unsure, gets buried beneath layers of image management. Over time, they forget who they really are. And what's left is a person who lives through performance, constantly seeking admiration, always terrified of being seen as flawed or average. Chapter 3. The making of the perfect mask. The false self isn't random. It's strategic. A narcissist will shape their false self based on what will give them the most power in their environment. If they're in a religious circle, they become the humble, holy leader. In business, the charismatic visionary. In relationships, the soulmate who just gets you. They'll mirror your interests, your values, your language. Not because they care, but because it helps them blend in. It helps them hook you. In the beginning, they'll seem so kind, so passionate, so emotionally intelligent, so perfectly matched to your needs. But this is performance, not authenticity. And when the mask starts to crack, when they feel you're pulling away, challenging them, or not admiring them enough, that's when the real narcissist shows up. Often in the form of rage, blame, guilt trips, or silent treatment. You'll be left wondering, who was that person I met in the beginning? Was that all fake? The short answer? Yes. That was the false self. Chapter 4. Traits of the false self. The false self isn't just a general mask, it comes with very specific traits. Let's break them down. Grandiosity. They may act overly important or believe they're destined for greatness. They exaggerate achievements or fabricate success stories. Perfectionism. They obsess over image, physically, socially, professionally. Everything has to look good, even if it's crumbling inside. Lack of authentic emotion. Their emotions often feel staged, like they know how to act sad, empathetic, or loving, but it feels hollow. Controlling behavior. The mask requires control. If they sense it slipping, they may lash out or manipulate to maintain the illusion. Idealization and devaluation. You're either their perfect person, or suddenly not enough. There's rarely a middle ground. The false self cannot tolerate nuance or reality. It thrives on fantasy because reality feels too threatening. Chapter 5. When the mask starts to slip. No one can perform 24/7. Eventually, life presents challenges that the narcissist can't control: rejection, criticism, failure, or exposure. When this happens, the false self begins to crack. And what lies beneath that mask begins to surface. Paranoia, rage, deep insecurity, blame shifting, victimhood. You'll notice changes like, I'm the only one who ever gets hurt. No one appreciates me. You've changed, you don't admire me like you used to. They may accuse you of being the narcissist. They may rewrite the story to make themselves the hero or the victim, never the villain. This moment is painful but revealing. It's the moment when illusion begins to fall away and reality steps in. Chapter 6: How the False Self Hurts You. Let's talk about you. If you've been in a relationship, romantic, professional, or familial, with someone operating from a false self, you've likely experienced cognitive dissonance. They used to be so kind. Now they're cold. Who is this person? Self-doubt. You may question your memory, your worth, or your perceptions. Emotional exhaustion. Managing someone's image is draining, especially when you're punished for seeing behind the mask. Loss of identity. In trying to adapt to their shifting selves, you may have lost your sense of who you are. The narcissist's false self doesn't just deceive others, it demands loyalty. And if you stop playing along, you'll be punished, discarded, or demonized. Chapter 7: The True Self versus the False Self. Let's break down this contrast clearly. The true self is who someone genuinely is: flawed, emotional, real. The false self is a carefully curated persona meant to protect the narcissist's fragile ego. Here's how they differ. True self, false self. Vulnerable, invincible facade. Emotionally honest, emotionally manipulative. Grows through self-reflection, deflects all criticism. Seeks genuine connection, seeks control and admiration. Can say, I don't know, or I was wrong, must always be right or superior. The narcissist abandoned their true self long ago, often in childhood. Why? Because it didn't feel safe. If a child is shamed for showing emotion, criticized for being themselves, or only rewarded for performance, they learn to hide who they are. They build a version of themselves that pleases others or gives them power. Over time, the narcissist doesn't just wear the false self. They become it. They forget the soft, human part underneath, or bury it so deep they're afraid to look at it. Chapter 8: Protecting the Mask at All Costs. The narcissist will go to extreme lengths to protect the false self. Think of it like glass, beautiful but brittle. Any crack, a critique, a failure, a rejection, can feel like annihilation. That's why even small challenges to their image provoke intense reactions. Examples of this include gaslighting. They deny, twist, or rewrite reality to preserve their mask. Triangulation. They involve others to back up their version of reality. Projection. They accuse you of what they themselves are doing. Cheating, lying, being selfish. Smear campaigns. If you see behind the mask and refuse to play along, they'll try to discredit you before you can expose them. They may even discard you. Not because you did something wrong, but because you saw too much. You became a threat to the image. The scary part? They often believe their own lies. The mask becomes their truth, and anyone who questions it becomes the enemy. Chapter 9: Shame, the core behind the mask. What fuels the false self? One word: shame. Not guilt, which says I did something wrong, but shame, which says I am wrong. I am unlovable. I am defective. This core shame is often unconscious, but it's what drives the narcissist's need to appear perfect. It's why they rage at small criticisms or implode when they're not admired. They cannot sit with shame. So instead they blame others, lie to themselves, attack you for pointing out the truth, escape into fantasy. The false self is their shield against shame. Without it, they'd have to face feelings they don't know how to handle. And that's terrifying for them. But here's the painful irony. The more they avoid that shame, the more damage they cause to themselves and everyone around them. Chapter 10: How the False Self Keeps You Hooked. Let's talk about trauma bonding, one of the most common effects of being in a relationship with someone operating from a false self. When you first meet them, the narcissist's mask is in full display. They're attentive. They idealize you. They tell you you're the only one who understands them. This creates intense emotional highs. Then, the devaluation starts. The mask slips. They criticize, withdraw, or manipulate you. But then, when you start to pull away, they love bomb again. Back to the charming false self. This cycle of idealized devalue Hoover keeps you addicted, because your brain is chasing the high of who they pretended to be. You think, maybe that sweet version is the real them. If I just love them more, they'll come back. Maybe I did something to cause this shift. But the truth is, that perfect version wasn't real. It was the mask. And the abuse isn't your fault. It's a system designed to keep you doubting, attached, and silenced. Chapter 11: The Collapse of the False Self. Eventually, something breaks the system. Could be public failure, a relationship ending, exposure of their lies, losing control over people they used to manipulate. When this happens, the narcissist may experience a collapse, an emotional implosion where the mask shatters and they're faced with the painful truth. Some signs of collapse: intense depression, paranoia, substance abuse, suicidal ideation, isolation. They may spiral into victimhood. No one loves me. Everyone's against me. People are so fake. But even in collapse, they may refuse to self-reflect. Instead of looking inward, they may try to build a new mask with a different crowd, a new relationship, or a rebranded identity. Healing from this collapse would require confronting the true self, which most narcissists avoid at all costs. Chapter 12: The Myth of the Real Narcissist Hidden Inside. Many survivors wonder, was that loving version I met in the beginning real? It felt real. The affection, the attention, the shared dreams. But here's the hard truth: that version was manufactured. Not because you weren't lovable, but because you were. Your light attracted their mask. They studied you, mirrored you, gave you what they knew would hook you. So know that kind narcissist you first met is not trapped inside, waiting to be rescued. That was the false self doing its job. It doesn't mean the narcissist is evil, it means they're wounded, fragmented, and afraid of showing their real self. But you are not required to stay in pain just because someone else is too afraid to grow. Chapter 13: Your reality matters more than their mask. The biggest shift in healing? Choosing your reality over their illusion. When you name the abuse, stop playing along, and start trusting your instincts, you break the spell. You stop chasing the person they pretended to be. You start grieving the loss of the fantasy. And you begin rebuilding your sense of truth. Some affirmations to hold on to. What I experienced was real. I am allowed to trust myself. I don't need to explain reality to those committed to denying it. My healing doesn't require their accountability. Because here's the truth: their mask was never your responsibility, but your healing is. Chapter 14: How to Spot the False Self in Others. Now that you know how the false self works, let's talk about how to recognize it in real life. Here are signs you're interacting with someone's false self instead of their authentic self. 1. They're too perfect. Always right, always successful, always composed, never shows vulnerability or failure. This isn't confidence, it's performance. It's a mask designed to gain approval. 2. They mirror you. In the beginning, they reflect your values, interests, language, and even your personality. You may feel like, wow, we're so alike. But it's not alignment. It's mimicry used to create connection fast. 3. They react poorly to criticism. Even gentle feedback can lead to rage, sulking, blame-shifting, silent treatment. Their false self cannot tolerate the idea that they're flawed. 4. Their charm has an expiration date. They're warm and magnetic at first until you say no, set a boundary, or stop admiring them. Then the switch flips. They go cold. They lash out. Or they ghost you altogether. 5. You feel like you're on stage too. When someone's wearing a mask, you might feel like you have to perform too, walking on eggshells, being on, or pretending to be okay just to keep the peace. That's a red flag. That's not connection, it's control. Chapter 15: Reclaiming Your Truth After False Self-Exposure. After being with someone who lived behind a false self, you might struggle with your own truth. You may ask, was it all fake? Did I imagine the good parts? How did I fall for that? These are normal questions. You're grieving a person who never truly existed, at least not in the way they presented themselves. Here's how to reclaim your truth. 1. Feel the grief. Yes, you can grieve someone who wasn't real. You love the idea of them. That doesn't make you foolish, it makes you human. 2. Journal what was real for you. Even if their love was performative, your feelings were real. Your memories, your emotions, your investment, all valid. Write it down. Say it out loud. Anchor yourself in your reality. 3. Stop chasing closure from them. They won't give it. They can't give it. Closure doesn't come from their confession, it comes from your clarity. Your healing doesn't depend on them understanding the damage they caused. Chapter 16. Healing the part of you that fell for the mask. Why did the mask work on you? Because it spoke to your unmet needs. Maybe you longed to feel seen or special. Maybe you lacked consistent love growing up. Maybe you were taught to over-explain, over-give, and over-forgive. The false self feeds off these needs not because you're weak, but because you're wired to attach. The goal now is to meet those needs yourself. Validate your worth without someone else's praise. Trust your gut even when someone charms you. Set boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. You don't have to never trust again. You just have to trust yourself more than the performance. Chapter 17. From victim to survivor to creator. You were victimized, and that matters. Let's not bypass that. But with time, you can move from victim to survivor and eventually to creator. Victim. Why did this happen to me? Survivor. I see what happened, and I'm working through it. Creator. This pain doesn't define me. I define my path forward. You can create new patterns, new relationships, a new story, one not written by the mask of another person but by the truth of who you are. Chapter 18. Rebuilding a life without the narcissist's illusion. Life after narcissistic abuse can feel flat at first. Quiet. Even boring. That's because you've stepped off the emotional roller coaster. But peace is not boring, it's freedom. Here's what you can build now. Friendships based on mutual care, not control. Partnerships grounded in truth, not performance. A relationship with yourself rooted in compassion, not comparison. You'll begin to notice red flags sooner. You'll value consistency over charisma. You'll feel safe being your true self because you no longer fear losing someone who only loved a mask. Chapter 19. The courage to be real. The final healing step? Dare to live unmasked yourself. Because after spending time with someone who wore a false self, you might have started hiding parts of yourself too, just to survive. You might have stopped speaking your mind, dimmed your joy, questioned your worth. But now, you don't need to shrink. You don't need to mold yourself to stay safe. You get to take up space again, to laugh too loud, to cry without shame, to tell your story. The best revenge against a world that told you to perform is to live in truth. The narcissist's false self is a fortress built from fear, shame, and pain. But your true self is your freedom grounded in self-trust, clarity, and courage. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to unmask them. You just need to walk away and keep walking into your own truth. Let them stay behind the mask. You were never meant to live behind one. This has been Mirror Mind. If this helped you see more clearly, share, comment, or just sit with it. You are not alone. Let's keep healing. Together.